Good morning. Welcome to Plugged In. We will be in Exodus chapter 4 right after this. Welcome back to Plugged In. I'm a little too chippy, I guess, for the time change. I even said something to Pete, and Pete's kind of like, I don't know. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, like it was supposed to be 3 o'clock. I don't know. I'm so messed up with the time change. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Hey, I'm glad you're here, though. And I know that some of you that are experiencing spring break this week, so you've got some kids at home, or maybe you're traveling. You can watch this while you're on the road. Again, like and share, pass this along to people. We've been doing this lesson series out of Exodus chapter 4. We've been looking at some rebuttals and or excuses that Moses was giving for not being the right person to lead the people out of slavery. And we've come to the fourth one, and so I have a personal story to help get us to the specific text here in just a few moments. I've got it on paper here. I might glance at it, but since it's a personal story, I pretty much know it. But I want to make sure I'm on track here. So here's the deal. When I was in high school, I was not one of the better students. Now, there's really no one to blame for that except myself. I just didn't apply myself in the way I should have. Now, I enjoyed going to school. That might sound weird. I enjoyed the fellowship, the relationships, the camaraderie with the friends. I did get good grades in like PE and study hall and lunch hour. There were a few classes that I really enjoyed, but I could have done a little bit better in them if I would have just applied myself, if I would not have been so scared or afraid. So let me explain that out a little bit. I enjoyed then, and I guess it's just kind of stayed with me, but I enjoyed being the class clown. I thrive on being the life of the party. I love making people laugh. I look at things on the lighter side of life. I'm trying to help people who sometimes are wading through their personal struggles. I wanted to bring them some joy in their life. So again, let me reiterate that I really enjoyed being the class clown. That is important for you to know because of what I'm about to share. I hated getting up in front of class to give oral reports. Now that might sound strange, doesn't it? But you see, here's the deal. As a class clown, I was in control of the antics and the situation. But to be given an assignment where I had to do some research, which in my day meant going to the library and pulling down a book and basically writing in what was in the encyclopedia and making sure I noted that. And then standing in front of my classmates and reciting my findings, that brought fear and horror to me. I was self-conscious. I was afraid that my material was not good enough. I was afraid I would stumble or stutter through my presentation and be laughed at it. Now, I'm not probably the only person who has ever dealt with this. Some of you who are watching know exactly what I was going through and or still today sometimes go through. But here's the weird part of all of this. During my sophomore year is when I felt a call on my heart from God to go into full-time Christian service, to go into ministry. But what I decided I would do is spend all of my years as a youth pastor. I have a dear friend, Les Londine, who is the youth pastor at Southland Christian Church in Springfield. Les is just 2 to 3 years younger than I am. I'm 57. Les has been not only in youth ministry for 30 plus years, he's been at the same church for 30 plus years. That you just don't hear of that. A lot of people look at youth ministry as a stepping stone to real ministry, but we really need some dedicated youth ministers. And Les, I will do a shout out for him, does a great job there at Southland and has done really good. And I thought that I would do the same. It was going to be fun. There were pizza parties, all-night events, volleyball and kickball in the gym. Yes, there would be the weekly lessons, but I would be teaching teens, which maybe mentally I was on their level, okay? But God had other plans. Along the way in my Bible college years, even in some of my early years of youth ministering, I would be preaching. Maybe I would have to fill in, and I would have individuals share with me some positive feedback on my presentation. But there was just something about getting up in front on a regular basis. I did cut my teeth finally in youth ministry. And again, from time to time, I would preach. But God's whole plan was for me to do that all the way, like on a regular basis. And I wrote on my paper here, gulp, like, oh my goodness. I remember when I took on the first full-time preaching ministry. It meant getting up in front of people every week, presenting a lesson on a weekly basis for anywhere from 25 to 45 minutes. I tried to avoid that call, but it just kept coming. Now, here's why I share the story. Moses was trying everything he could think of to get out of leading the Hebrews out of slavery from the Egyptians. He made up excuses. He gave rebuttals to God as to why he was not the right person for the job. In Exodus chapter 4, verse 10, it's going to appear on your screen, we see one of his last excuses. He says this, "O Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." A little bit different version maybe here, or maybe a newer NIV version on your screen. I'm reading from an older version. But basically what he was saying is, I cannot talk in front of people. And now Moses probably thought that this responsibility of leading was going to require a lot of speaking. So he thought, wow, I have finally came up with an excuse that will stick. He thought he had convinced God that he was not the right candidate. Now, the rest of what I'm going to share with you will not be on the screen, but you can follow along in your own Bibles, read this later. But verse 11, God replies real quickly. He says this, "Who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak and teach you what to say. You know, by now you would think that Moses would just surrender. Nope. He was hard-headed, just like I was for many years, making up excuses. I even tried using the words of Moses found in verse 12 of that dialogue. "O Lord, please send someone else to do it." Now, if you've ever read the story of Moses, you know that as it unfolds, he finally surrenders. God is angry with him, but God's still going to use him, and God allows for him to have an associate, as we would call him in today's world. His brother Aaron is going to assist him. But you know, as you read through the accounts of Moses, you find out that Aaron doesn't do a lot of the speaking. It is Moses. Moses is the one that goes to Pharaoh. Moses is the one that gives speeches to the people while he's leading them. He will become more and more comfortable in speaking on behalf of God. Interestingly enough, when we jump to the New Testament book of Acts, we find in chapter 7 that a man named Stephen is giving a speech, and he uses Moses in that speech as an example. And here's what he said. Moses was educated in all wisdom of the Egyptians. Now catch this. And he was powerful in speech and action. Does that mean Moses was a liar when he said he wasn't eloquent of speech? Some suspect that he had a stammering or stuttering tongue. I think what it is that Moses probably had more potential than he gave himself credit for. God saw his potential. And what he saw in Moses, he saw in me. And he sees it in you too. He's just waiting for you to surrender to him. You want to know a little secret? I still get nervous at times when I know that I'm about to stand before a crowd or even speak into a camera on a weekly Facebook feed. But I've come to realize I'm not alone at this. The Lord will teach me what to say. He will give me the words to say. And when I'm faithful in obeying his call, his purpose will be accomplished. I hope that's an encouragement for you when God calls on you in whatever capacity it might be. It does you no good to make up an excuse. God's called you for a reason. Be obedient and be faithful to him. Thank you again for watching Plugged In. We'll be back next Monday at about the same time, around 8:30 that morning. Have a wonderful week.